Well, the Maple Leafs come away with a victory. Wasn't the most convincing win, but it's 2 points nonetheless. The Leafs just keep chugging along, win after win. We'll break down the 5-2 victory against the Philadelphia Flyers. And then it was a weird game because the lines went into a blender. We're going to take a look at what we would do if we had the lineup card come game one of the playoffs. So that is also going to be coming up on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also writer for the NHLPA, and Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to be subscribed. You can subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can also now catch us on video format via YouTube. It's Locked On Leafs on YouTube. Our road to 1,000 continues. Dave won 1,000 subs, and then we unlock a new giveaway, another giveaway. So keep subbing, keep sharing, share everything, comment, subscribe, all that nonsense, and we'll really, really appreciate it as we try and grow this thing with Dave and I. So Maple Leafs, 5-2 victory, nice tidy win, pick up your 2 points, and now you head on the road for 3 much more difficult games, but that's okay because the Leafs play up to their opponent, they play down to their opponent, just kind of seems to be the way things go. But Dave, I don't know about you. And we'll get into the game, we'll dissect it a little bit and go through 3 stars, and like we do after every game, but I'm ready for the playoffs, dude. Like I felt this way in like the Buffalo game last week, and at that point there was like 10 games to go in the season, and I'm like, I'm not jacked up for this game. Like I'm ready for the playoffs. Like at this point, I feel like they're ready to go. And I was thinking about it today because I'm like, there's still 5 games to go. How am I gonna cut? Like I gotta bring myself to watch them. Luckily, there's really good games going on the rest of the week. But then like that game next week against Detroit, the second last game of the season, I'm gonna have a tough time finding motivation to watch that game. Now, because of my job, I clearly am going to. But you've got guys like Auston Matthews taking a seat. He's taking nights off. You got Sheldon Keefe just tweaking around the lineup, just trying different things against subpar teams like Philadelphia. I just feel like after a couple of years here where the seasons have been cut short through a pandemic, we had when it really when the pandemic first hit in 2020, there was about 60 or so games, 68, 67, 69 games, depending on how many games you got through at that point in the season. And then last year, a 56-game season. We're back to 82 games for the first time in 3 years. It just feels like this last stretch, it feels like an eternity, does it not? I got to feel like it's the players feel the same. Like it's been a while since they've had to endure such a long season like this.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally the reason. It's the fact that we haven't had a marathon season like this in 2 years. And for the Leafs, generally,
Longer, dude. It's been since 2019.
yeah, 3 years. Like time is just a thing now. We can't 3 years, like I always think of it as 2 years ago, but no, it's 3 years ago. But yeah, like for the Leafs, they clinched their playoff spot relatively early. So it's like, really, what are they playing for? Well, people are saying, well, they're still playing for Zach in the Atlantic. That's pretty much almost a lock too at this point. Like,
Yeah, after they win tonight and then Tampa losing to Detroit, that's crazy. First of all, it
Boston
does
1
seem like
point
a bit of a
behind
low.
Tampa now.
Yeah, and then they gotta play Tampa, and that could change things if they end up losing in regulation. It tightens things up a little bit, but I mean they control their own destiny, and it's not like there's some very winnable games here down the stretch as well. And I just feel like I'm ready for the playoffs, man. Like, I don't care about the next 5 games. Let's just fast forward to like May 2nd, May 3rd, whenever they start to drop the puck for round 1. And I feel like the team is ready. Like, they're playing at a very high level right now. All throughout the lineup, you got guys like Nylander who have turned the corner. He's playing extremely well. You've got Mitch Marner, who's been red hot all of 2022. Bunting has picked it up in the goal scoring pace a little bit here. You got Engvall, Mikheyev. Like, everyone's starting to pick it up. Timothy Liljegren picking things up. Let's just get to the playoffs before there's time to cool off, because there's nothing, like you said, there's not much to play for right now. And it just feels like it's tough for the players maybe to get up for these games with nothing to play for. Like tonight's game is a stinker. Like, let's be honest. It wasn't an overly entertaining game. Philadelphia is not a fun team to watch. They suck. And Toronto actually somewhat were outplayed by the Philadelphia Flyers, but Philly just, you make a couple of mistakes against this offense, they're going to make you pay, and that's kind of how tonight went down. But if you look at the expected numbers, Philly was supposed to win that game, right? Which is kind of interesting. But all in all, a boring game. Extremely uneventful first period. Decent second period. Things picked up a little bit. We saw 4 goals kind of go down. And the third period, it was just the Leafs kind of hanging on. Philly pushed a little bit. But overall, uneventful game. Uneventful game.
Uneventful game because really there was nothing really on the line for either team, right? No,
To stay
Phillies.
healthy. Stay healthy. That's it. Everyone just wants to stay healthy at this point in the year. So if that's the case, just don't play the games. Go right to the playoffs if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, this is like, in other sports you see, like in baseball, a bunch of teams do like their September call-ups, and a bunch of their young guys get a chance to play, and you get to see, and the vets get their, if they're in the playoff hunt, vets get their chance to rest and all those things. Like right now, the most exhilarating thing happening in the NHL right now is going on in the Western Conference, because the Eastern Conference has been set for most
Yeah.
of the year. So yeah, if I'm the Leafs right now, yeah, your number one priority is don't get hurt. And for some of the guys, you get a chance to feel a little bit good knowing that you've got some new career highs, and certain, guys are setting new milestones for themselves. That's pretty much the only thing really that's given any sort of, oh, that's sort of neat. Other than that, it's like I had no reason to really. We watched the game, but it's not like we're watching it and we're just at the edge of our seat waiting for the thing to start. We're just like, all right, this is like game 1 of 6 remaining that we're just waiting to get it over with.
And it's more so, I think, because I said, I had the same feeling when they played Buffalo. It's these games against non-playoff teams that aren't very good and don't have much to play for, and they seem meaningless. Whereas Thursday, that's a meaningful game. They're playing against an opponent, could end up being a primer for what we could see in the first round. I'll be invested into that game. I'll be intrigued in that game. But tonight, I wasn't very much intrigued by it. There wasn't many big storylines coming into the game outside of, the fact that Sheldon Keefe was shuffling the lines. Auston Matthews was out again. Muzzin was out again. And Jack Campbell was getting the start over Shalgren. Like, the lineup juggling was the big, I guess, like, that was really the only storyline going into this game for the Maple Leafs. So why don't we get into the game? We could talk a little bit about what you thought of these new look lines. If there's stuff you want to see stay, some stuff you want to see go. Talk a little bit about Jack Campbell, who I thought probably his best performance in a long time, in a long while, probably since that shutout that he had on January 1st. Since then, hasn't played very well, and I think it could potentially have been his best game since that day. But, overall, it's 2 points. Let's move on. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's what Toronto's feeling right now. But before we dive more into this game, let me tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and that's HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Get farm fresh, seasonal produce, and easy to make recipes delivered right to your door each and every week. HelloFresh chefs really know how to diversify that menu with seasonal recipes like salmon limon and pasta primavera. And you can pick your favorites from 50 different weekly options and skip weeks when you don't need to. Whether you want to change your delivery date or update your preferences, you can do it all in the HelloFresh app. Go to HelloFresh.com/LockedOn16. Use the code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's LockedOn16 at HelloFresh.com for 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano here. I've got Dave Morassutti alongside me. We're your hosts here at Locked On Leafs, the best daily Maple Leafs centric podcast out there. Hopefully you're subscribed. This is your first time tuning into Locked On Leafs. Appreciate it. Thank you for giving us your time. Hopefully you enjoyed it enough to subscribe, whether you're listening via podcast or on YouTube. So the Maple Leafs with a 5-2 win over the Philadelphia Flyers. Why don't we start with Jack Campbell? Let's start with his night because I felt that he was probably the story of the game coming out of it, I guess, is the fact that Jack looked closer to himself back what he was earlier in the season than he has in a long while, in my opinion.
The only other game I could say that Jack Campbell looked great was against the Lightning. That game,
a couple weeks ago, yeah, when they were in Tampa on that back-to-back.
When they were in Tampa. Other than that, yeah, I would agree that this is his like these are the 2 straight games where he's posted above a .930 save percentage.
Yeah.
And he even said after the game, I'm getting my game is where I want it to be right now.
Yeah.
That's something you definitely want to hear from Jack Campbell right now.
Yeah, like when I'm watching Jack Campbell in net, I find that he is definitely more spry. I think that his movements have been a lot more. I don't want to call it oily, but like he seems to be moving a little bit more than he was when he was not playing very well. I think that has a lot to do with it. He's tracking the puck extremely well, whether he's looking through guys. I think the defense is doing a good job of letting him see pucks from far away, so guys aren't able to screen him and get a lot of tips, which was really a big problem during his big slide midway through the season. The only thing that I think he needs to work on at this point, and I think he'll allude to this, and specifically based on one of tonight's goals, his rebound control still needs a little bit of it just needs to clean it up a little bit, I would say. Still giving up a couple too many rebounds and giving up those extra second, third opportunities to the oppositions. And that's how the first goal ended up in the back of the net, right? James Van Riemsdyk, you couldn't handle the first shot, and he gets a couple of whacks at it eventually. That guy around the net is almost automatic. He's going to put it in if you give him enough chances, and that's what happened. So, the way that he's tracking the puck, though, his glove hand seems to be working a lot better than it was. He made a couple of real nice glove stops, some good pad saves, too, going cross crease to make a couple of stops. I thought that he played really well. And like I said, the only thing at this point that I think he still needs to get back to is corralling pucks a little bit easier. That rebound control could still use a little bit of work. But outside of that, he's looking more like the Jack Campbell of October and November that was a Vezina caliber goaltender.
Yeah, and there was that tweet about the Leafs record when their goaltending is above 900 on the season, and it's like ridiculous. I meant to pull it up and I totally forgot.
Dude, I could definitely see that happening because this is what, the 6th or 7th straight victory for Jack Campbell. I think it's the 7th.
Yeah,
He has a sub 900 save percentage in those games, and he's 7-0. Look at this. The Maple Leafs are 34-3-1 when they get 900 goaltending. 900. That's below league average. That's not even league. That is below league average. But if you can give them 900 goaltending, they win 34 out of 38 games this season.
Like that's just ridiculous. Like that just shows
But
what's the bar for the Leafs goaltending, what the Leafs goaltending needs to be in order for this team to have success.
you know what that also means, Dave, which is a problem. How many games are we in? This would have been game, what, 76? Yeah.
Mhm.
So they've only gotten 900 goaltending in 38 of 76 games this year. That's 50%.
So it also, I mean, we have what, a 2-month stretch where the goaltending, or 3-month stretch where the goaltending was like not very
A
good,
bit
but they were getting wins.
abysmal.
I would have liked to have seen the Leafs record when you have to do the reverse order a little bit. I don't want to do the math right now because I could do it wrong and it'll make me look really stupid. But I'm very curious to see what's the reverse of that. What is the goal? What is, like, are the Leafs like desperately in huge trouble if they don't get 900 goaltending? Um, no, I mean, look, the fact that they haven't gotten 900 goaltending a lot this season, yes, does say the goaltending hasn't been to the standard that that was set last year. That the goaltending was not an issue last year. This year, we know how much of it has been an issue, but it's also been a bit of a fluky season in that regard as well. So,
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I think what we can take out of these last couple of games, the win against the Islanders, he wins the game tonight. We can take out of it that goaltending seems to be kind of turning around here. They seem to be playing a lot better than they were earlier, just a few weeks ago, really. So Jack Campbell's starting to turn that corner. We're starting to see signs that he's regaining his game back, and he's saying all the right things post practice too, or post game. Like he seems to be not taking these losses. Like when he does allow goals, he's not losing, so that helps when you're winning games. But Jack before they could win a game like 4-2, and he'd be like, I still allowed a couple of goals that I shouldn't have, and that's on me. I'll take those goals. This should have been a 4-0 game. The guys played better than that. I shouldn't have allowed anything. He took every single goal as if it was his fault. Doesn't seem to be doing that anymore. It really he seems to be in a much better mental state, which I think is helping him brush things off and just be all like he's thinking less. He's just playing. He's going out there and playing, I think, at this point. And he seems to be doing a much better job of it. All right. What did you feel about the lineup tinkering by Sheldon Keefe? Why don't you pull up the Leafs tweet from earlier in the game or pregame when they sent out the lineup? Because when I first saw this, because there was no morning skate today, or it was an optional morning skate. There's no practice. So we didn't necessarily know what the lines are going to look like. The only line that Sheldon Keefe in his morning availability said was the Nylander, Kerfoot, Engvall line was going to remain intact. The rest was going to be all shaken up. And I didn't know what the heck that meant or what that was going to look like. But seeing Nick Abruzzese as as the number one center between Marner and Bunting was not something I expected to see. I guess it's number two here on the tweet we're looking at. But Mikheyev, Tavares, Blackwell started out the game together. Bunting with Abruzzese and Marner, and then Nylander, Kerfoot, Engvall, Simmons, Kampf, and Spezza. What was your how do you feel about these new forward lines, I guess, these little experiments from Sheldon Keefe tonight?
I like the fact they were giving Abruzzese a little bit of a little bit of a bump in a way, playing him with other guys that are not named Spezza and Simmons. I thought that was a nice little gesture for the young guy there. The Mikheyev Tavares Blackwell line was interesting. Um, just because that's another case where we've constantly said that Blackwell could be a guy that can move up to the top 6 at some point. And we kind of just we just saw that, yep, they're considering that as a possibility. Yeah, so like those two lines were like seeing Abruzzese get his chance, and then seeing Tavares, Mikheyev, and Blackwell together was interesting. But I think the line that really sticks out to me again for another game was Kerfoot, Nylander, and Engvall. I'm wondering if that's gonna. I mean, it all depends, obviously, with Matthews and how that changes the way the lineup looks. But I'm wondering if that sort of Sheldon Keefe is leaning more towards that as a potential trio that could be put together as well.
He, this morning in his media availability, did say that Nylander, Kerfoot, Engvall will probably get a bit of a run here. And he's been meaning to try and put Nylander and Kerfoot back together. He liked the way they looked in the playoffs last year. They were two of the best players in the playoffs. I think we could both agree, especially since Tavares was out with injury. Marner and Matthews were rather inexistent. It was Nylander, Kerfoot, and Galchenyuk last year who were kind of the top line who rode that team all the way to a game 7. So he wants to get them back together. And then, the chemistry that Engvall and Nylander have created over the last few weeks, I appreciate the fact that he wants to keep those two in line together. So it seems like that trio is going to get a run here, which meant Camp got knocked down to the 4th line. I wasn't sure how I felt about that just because I thought Camp has been a terrific player for this team. And the 4th line really outplayed their opposition tonight. They had a 90% Corsi rating and 6 scoring chances for the 4th line, 0 scoring chances against, 3 of them being high danger chances as well. And Camp did end up getting a goal tonight, as did Jason Spezza. So, you had some production from those guys. And here's one other thing that I want to ask you about this lineup that we're looking at here. So when you talk about Nylander, Kerfoot, and Engvall, so they're the 3rd line on paper, right? And the 3rd line typically is more of a checking line in the modern day NHL. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, by what most people would call it and define it, yeah, that would likely be the bruiser line, or like the line you
Defensive
go and
line.
just go and create havoc in a way almost.
Well, just like the matchup line. Like this is the line when you're looking to line match. This is who you're throwing in on those defensive zone face-off draws. I don't see that out of this lineup. When I look at a more of a matchup, traditional 3rd line defensive matchup type of situation, doesn't Tavares, Blackwell, Mikheyev kind of give you that vibe? As like if you're line matching line 1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, where you've got Point, Kucherov, and whether it's Killorn, Stamkos, Palat, whoever it is, doesn't it feel like Mikheyev, Tavares, and Blackwell seems like the go-to line matching type of lineup as opposed to being a top 6 like scoring line?
I think what it is here is, yeah, Tavares, we know he's good on the draws. We know what Mikheyev can do defensively as like a forechecker. Blackwell's kind of the X factor in all this in a way. Like, he's a good defensive player. We've seen him elevate the 4th line since he's come here. I think Sheldon Keefe is trying to see how does Blackwell play in those situations where he's playing against the better competition. So let's say this line stays together against Tampa. How they get used will be very, very interesting if that's the case.
Yeah, it's a thought that crossed my mind, and it's because Blackwell's on that line. If it was Kerfoot, like it had been over the last little bit, I don't necessarily have that thought. But like between the two, Nylander, Engvall, Kerfoot seems more of an offensive trio, and Mikheyev, Tavares, and Blackwell, I certainly would trust way more than those other 3 in my own end and matching up against, a top
Oh, for
6
sure.
opponent. That's the way that I kind of look at that. So I thought that was a little interesting. But I was talking with Darren Dreger today, and he was even saying it's a 3-line league. It's no longer a top 6. It's now a top 9. You look at the Stanley Cup champs back to back, and how much was talked about how that 3rd line of Tampa Bay really like vaulted them into that conversation to being an elite team and to becoming Stanley Cup champions. It was that depth, that top 9 that really allowed them to become that. And it's a copycat league. It seems like the Maple Leafs might be trying to do something a little bit similar.
Yeah, I mean, and look, that's been the least problem in past years too, right? You stop that top six. You're most teams will ride and die with the Leafs bottom six beating them,
Hmm.
and in the playoffs it hasn't happened. So I think that's Sheldon Keefe saying, pretty much trying to tell opposing teams, we've got options past the top two lines that we can throw at you, and you got to be worried about. And I think that's what we're starting to see a little bit here, and it's worked, right? Nylander has been unreal. I think he has 16 points in the last 11 games I saw. Like
18.
18. Well, I stand corrected. Like this is this is this is Sheldon Keefe trying to get guys going in different ways. And what I don't mind when you are not putting all your eggs in one basket or in two baskets. Why not spread the love a little bit more? Even have a fourth line that's somewhat that you could throw out a little bit more than 6-7 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Like I have no problem if they want to spread it out a little bit and make life a little bit easier for your top six.
I almost wonder if like swap out Matthews for Abruzzese, if that's what Sheldon Keefe's ideal lineup looks like come game one of the playoffs. Maybe if Muzzin's healthy, you slot Muzzin in there as well, I guess, into the defense somewhere if you want, I suppose. You could slide Brody over to the right and put Muzzin there over Hall. I wonder if that's what he wants, and that's why he's trying to get a look at it now. Want to give them a little bit of a taste in this game against Philly, and then perhaps the real test to see if it's something that could stick will come this weekend when they head out and play Tampa Bay and then Florida on Saturday, and then again Washington, another playoff team who they'll play on Sunday. So I'll be curious to see if these lines continue to get looks, or if he continues to kind of move things around and shake things up. And it could be a fluid lineup. We're not really sure at this point. Sheldon Keefe is keeping us all on our toes, keeping the players on their toes as well. He talked about how lineup fluidity has kind of created some internal competition, and they've seemed to be playing a heck of a lot better as of late. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But we'll get to our 3 stars of tonight's game. But before we do, Dave, why don't you get to our good folks from Built Bar?
Yes, obviously we're trying very hard to stick to our New Year's resolutions, so why not let Built Bar help you stick to them? Have you tried their pups? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of the best Built Bars out there. The first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors, like yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. These are going to be your new favorite. Just go to built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carbs. Most built bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. At built.com, they're all about the taste. They make it delicious first and figure out how to make it healthy. And all about you, they pull it off every time. So make sure you go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. So that is LOCK15 to get 15% off at built.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. I've got Dave Morassutti with me. We are breaking down the Leafs' 5-2 victory over the lowly, putrid Philadelphia Flyers. No offense to our friends over at Locked On Flyers, but it's not a good club. It's not a good franchise. I'll tell you that. It could be a long-suffering few seasons for the Philly faithful. But hey, we've been there. We've been there. We've done our due. It's time for Toronto to succeed now. 5-2 victory tonight. Run me through your 3 stars, Dave.
Oh, man. Yeah. So I would say third star is going to give it to Willie Nylander, setting himself a new career high in goals.
Mm-hmm.
Love to see guys setting themselves up for some good looking stats that make things look a little easy, look a little nicer on them, and maybe change people's perspectives on them just a little bit. So yeah, he was my third star. Second star, I'm gonna give it to Jack Campbell for obvious reasons. Great game, good performance. Didn't look like he had to do all. He had some pretty tough saves, but he didn't have to be overly spectacular in this game. In my opinion, Philadelphia just. I wasn't worried about them being the Leafs in this game.
Yeah.
And then first star, let's go with the old man trio on that goal.
I thought I was gonna trick you. I
Nah,
thought I
I
was
got
gonna trick you. I was gonna do the same thing. Those are literally 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, my exact same
yeah.
stars of the game.
I was and special shout out to Timothy Liljegren as well. Nice nice to see him continue to
Ooh,
prove us right.
picked the corner on that one, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
But I mean that goal by Spezza, Giordano, and Simmons.
What was it? A combined 109 years old, I
Oh,
believe it was.
actually, I got the full thing here. It was a goal 111 years and 2 weeks into the making.
11 wait, 111 and 2 weeks?
111 years and 2 weeks officially.
Unbelievable. But yeah, that was such an amazing goal. It was just like a little tic-tac-toe. Nylander up to Simmons kind of stops up, and it had to be Keith Yandle who took the spill there, didn't it? Just to kind of really make it a whole old man line. It was Yandle who took the spill in front of Simmons, which allowed him to get it to Spezza, over to Gio. Spezza cuts backdoor, bing bang boom, beautiful, beautiful goal. And yeah, that was my first star as well. I had Jack as my second and Willie as my third. We talked about Willie and how he's turning things around a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot of it recently. And he's got 18 in his last 12. So it was 18 and 12 because he got 2 points tonight. And he said post game, Justin Cuthbert tweeted this out. I thought this was really cool. And if I was Sheldon Keefe or if I was a teammate of Nylander, I'd be stoked to hear that this is happening. He said Nylander shares that when he was going through it a few weeks back, he did some self-prescribed video work, selecting random games from earlier in the season to watch. He says what he picked up from his game in those sessions has helped him recapture his form. I love to hear that. Absolutely love to hear that, Dave.
Oh, I mean, this is a guy who people constantly say that can you win with a guy like this? Is he doing the right things?
Does he care? Does
Does
he
he
does he
care?
care? Or is he just trying to coast on talent? This makes me feel like he cares and
Yeah.
he wants to get better and he knows how good he can be on a nightly basis and he wanted to get back to that and he put in the extra time. He went above and beyond, took the initiative to just do some self-prescribed video, went looked at some clips from when he was gelling and mirrored it to see what was I doing then that was working and what am I doing now that's not working. And clearly he found out what a big difference was. I was chatting with Frank Corrado, former Maple Leafs defenseman, and we had this discussion a couple weeks ago. And what he told me, he said, if I were Willie, this is around when he was struggling. It's funny. He said, if I were Willie, I would go and I would look at some clips from when I was. So literally exactly what he said. This is what he said he would do as well. And what he noted was two things. A, he was less aggressive with the puck. And B, there was no knee bend with Willie. He was very straight legged, which made him seem unengaged a lot of the time. If you watch him now, that's certainly not the case. He's definitely more engaged. And I joke with Frankie, I texted him afterwards, that exact quote. And I was like, you think he heard the clip about the knee bend? Because he certainly turned things around since then. And we both had a chuckle about that. But the fact that he, went above and beyond in his own time and pulled some clips, figured out what was up, and he's definitely turned his game back around and just in time for the playoffs too. So it's perfect timing. Absolutely love to see it. We were going to do our lineups, but we might have to push that to tomorrow, Dave.
I think we'll need to find some stuff to talk about tomorrow, so I have no problem.
Yeah, we might have to push our. I mean, we got tons of time anyways to do a projected lineup, and maybe we want to get one more game. Even maybe this is something we do after the weekend. We might want one more game to see what this Blackwell, Tavares, and McKayev line looks like. Because maybe I do a little tinkering to what I originally thought that this game one lineup projection would be. So perhaps we'll do it tomorrow or later in the week. But at some point, we will get you our game one playoff lineup projection, or at the very least, what we would do come game one. So that'll come in the next couple of episodes, I would assume. And a reminder, we do episodes each and every day, Monday to Friday. So make sure that you are subscribed via audio if you're listening to this on audio, or subscribe on YouTube if you're listening on YouTube to make sure that you get that content every single day. That'll do it for us here today on the pod. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms. You receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show at Locked On Leafs. And make sure that you also follow and subscribe to us now up on YouTube. That's Locked On Leafs on YouTube. All right, we're back with another episode tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.